What's up, guys? Welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/EntitledParents.
This story's called Entitled Mother Slaps Me Across the Face for Defending Myself from Her Aggressive Child. Yep, you read that right, but hold your horses, we'll get there in a minute. So I've been lurking in here for a while, and finally decided to tell my story. This happened many years ago. Late 90s, maybe early 2000s, and I was about 8 or 9 at the time, and we'll try to relay it to the best of my recollection. The cast is quite varied, so pardon me if I don't make a list and instead name them as they come into play, thank you. Backstory! Both of my grandparents come from very big families, both with at least 6 siblings each, if not more. So as a result, I have a lot of aunts and uncles, and therefore a lot of cousins. They have 3 children and ended up with 4 grandchildren whom they dearly love more than anything else in the world. Now, I am the first grandchild they got. I am a male. I was named after my grandfather. You can imagine that I held a special place in their heart. They have always tried to be impartial and love everyone equally, but you could tell that they loved me just a little bit more. My grandmother happens to have a sister, entitled Gran, who is, for a lack of a better word, a harpy. She has a daughter, entitled Mother, who unfortunately didn't fall far from the tree. Both chain smokers ended up single mothers. Wonder how that might have possibly happened. Bitter and gossipy as they come. Entitled Mother has a son, entitled Kid, an only child at the time who, as you can imagine, had only one possible personality outcome with a family like that. They often come to our house, much to my displeasure, to drink coffee with my grandmother and basically fill her living room with smoke until you can't even breathe. Grandmother has always helped them in every possible way she could. She's given them money without expecting anything in return, cooked for them when they could not afford food, etc. For some reason, they never liked me, and always spoke to me with a false, simpery smile and a sweet, condescending tone. So of course, I tried to have as little interaction with him as I possibly could. So, on to the story! We're at a cousin's birthday party, not entitled Kid, but a first grade cousin, son of grandmother's oldest child, my aunt, so a second grade cousin to entitled Kid. But that's irrelevant to the story. Me and my sister are there with my grandmother, the adults unwinding in the dining room and the kids playing together in the living room. So we're in the living room playing with my cousin's toy guns, and I get one of the nicer ones. Entitled Kid doesn't like that, so he tries to get the gun from me. And by tries, I mean he starts kicking me, biting me, tries to rip the gun from my hands, screaming like a banshee in the process. I, being a couple of years older than him, managed to keep the gun out of his reach by holding it over my head. When suddenly, I see a set of adult legs rush over to us, and a much stronger hand just yanks the gun from me. Yep, you guessed it. It was Entitled Mother. Entitled Kid, in the meantime, is still kicking and biting me. So, I, no longer having my hands occupied by the gun, use them to just shove him away with all my might. And that's when I feel it. Wham! Right across the face, so hard that it causes me to fall down to the ground. I start crying and my nose starts bleeding. All the room freezes and all the kids stop playing, too shocked with what had just happened. My aunt, grandmother, and entitled grandma get alerted by me crying and run in the room. Grandmother sees me crying, blood pouring from my nose, and runs over to console me and assist me. Conversation ensues as following. What happened here? He took the gun away from Entitled Kid, then hit him. Me, in between sobbing, that's not true. He was biting and kicking to get the gun I was playing with from my hands. And she came and took it away and hit me for pushing him away because he was hurting me. Liar! Entitled Kid would never do such a thing. I always knew you were a nasty little dookie who deserves some more beating so he could learn how to behave. How she knew this? No bloody idea. I've always been a skinny little runt who loves sitting in the corner reading a book or playing video games more than anything else in the world. No predisposition to sports or violence whatsoever, and got way more beating than it should. Between the bullies at school and mean parents at home, she then proceeds to hug Entitled Kid and keeps hurling insults after insults under her breath at me. At this point, you can see a vein pulsing on grandmother's forehead. She turns to my cousins and the other kids in the room and asks them what happened. The kids obviously corroborate my story, not entitled mothers. She starts yelling, calling everyone liars, little craps, when suddenly my grandmother goes, "Shut up!" Grandmother says with fury so cold rushing through her voice it could solve the global warming issue by freezing everything over. "I have always helped you. I've always given you money when you needed, but..." Grandmother raises her voice. "I have cooked food for you when you didn't have it. I helped you every time I could and you go ahead and raise your hand to my grandchild? For a toy?" But he hit entitled kid first. "Liar! I don't ever want to see your faces again. Don't you dare knock on my door or ask me for a favor. You won't get anything from me even if you are starving to death under a bridge. Get out! Get out!" Now, we're at my aunt and uncle's place, not my grandmother's. So technically, she has no authority to tell anyone to leave. My aunt? Silent. Not a word. Just stands there and lets my grandmother do her thing. Entitled Gran and Entitled Mother look shell-shocked, but quickly grab Entitled Kid, who is now crying, get their things, and leave. Party resumes shortly after that. Entitled Gran and her family didn't show their faces in my grandmother's house for over 6 months. The relationship mended only after they came over to apologize to me and grandmother and brought some chocolate for me as an apology gift. Yes, they did need a favor from grandmother. How very surprising. Anyway, thank you for powering through this. Brevity has never been my strong suit. I know it all seems absurd, but I can assure you it really happened. Wowie kazowie, that's quite the CPS case right there. Wow. Well, your grandmother obviously loves you and cares for you, so you know what? Teary-eyed right there. I don't know. I love when people care about each other. This story's called Entitled Mother Calls Police on Me Because I Refuse to Pay to Fix Her Car. Cast, me, Entitled Mother, Innocent Kid, a 16-year-old girl, Assistant Manager, and Police. I worked at a truck stop, and on this particular day, I was working the front, which is mostly car drivers. Innocent Kid comes in and says she wants to fill up on pump 16 and leaves me with her card. I asked her if she was getting diesel, and she said yes. She comes back in a few minutes later and pays. I thought that would be the end of it. Nope. Enter Entitled Mother. This is probably where I should drop some knowledge. Pumps 14, 15, and 16 are different than other pumps on that side. They are meant for vehicles bigger than cars, but not as big as tractor trailers. If you didn't know, most of those vehicles have 2 tanks. As such, there are nozzles on each side. Think a little less space between pumps and turn one around so they're facing each other. There is only 1 parking space for all the pumps. There are 3 standalone pumps on each side, spaced very close together. They look like ones you'd see in a mom and pop store. One is regular gas, one is premium gas, one is diesel, respectively, on each side. It sounds confusing, but it's beneficial for the vehicles needing more space and various fuel types. Sorry if I explain this wrong, I don't always do well when describing things. The majority of people using those pumps are well versed on how to use them. Occasionally other people would pull up when we were slammed, and it was usually these people who would screw it up. Each pump is vastly detailed to prevent errors. If only. The diesel pump is pretty much plastered with the word diesel everywhere, including the handle of the nozzle. I have kept more than a few people from putting the wrong fuel type in their vehicle. I was always vigilant about asking because I know how I'd feel to make a costly mistake like this. If someone were to say they wanted diesel on pump 14, I'd tell them the diesel pump was 16. Now back to our Entitled Mother. This lady is furious when she walks in. She immediately asks who rang up her daughter, and I said, me. Then she's all, "My daughter just gave me the receipt and this is not what I paid for. Your advertised gas price is," insert 2012 gas price here, "and I was charged a lot more. Can I speak to your manager?" "Yes, ma'am, I'll go get her." Just an FYI though, that's the diesel price, which is what you purchased. What? I asked for gas, not diesel? Are you telling me that there's diesel in my car? Oh my god, this is your fault. Ma'am, I asked your daughter if she was buying diesel, and she assured me she was. She's just a child. You should know better. My car is a... whatever brand, I don't remember. And I know you can look at it and see that it takes gas. Ma'am, I don't have a view of that side of the lot, so I had no idea what you were driving. That's irrelevant anyway because some cars do take diesel. At this point, my manager came up because Entitled Mother was making a scene. Basically, she reiterated everything that I told Entitled Mother. Entitled Mother was having none of it. She was convinced it was my fault, and nothing was going to deter her from that way of thinking.
This isn't right. I'm calling the police and filing a complaint. You are going to pay for the damage to my car from the diesel.
I just avoided her because I had other customers. Enter the police. They get a rundown of everything and explained that neither me nor the store were liable.
But my daughter didn't know. She is an innocent girl, and because of this lady, my car is ruined. Can't you do anything?
It seems that if you had not sent your daughter in, this probably wouldn't have happened. As you said, she didn't know the difference in gasoline and diesel, yet you still put that responsibility on her by sending her in.
But that's not fair. Who is your supervisor? I am going to speak to them about all of you and your unwillingness to help me and to blame an innocent child.
Literally, none of us blamed the kid at all. I actually felt really bad for her, and I even told her before she left she wasn't to blame. Ultimately, it was her mom's fault for sending her in there with no idea what she was doing. Entitled Mother realized that what she wanted wasn't gonna happen, but she was not happy about it. She wanted me to pay and or lose my job. She ended up being there my entire shift, waiting for someone to come pump out the diesel. She came back in several times throughout the day and stared daggers at me every time. I actually left before she did and laughed my butt off as I walked by her. I never saw her again, but she made good on her promise to complain to my company. Exaggeratedly, might I add. She made it sound as if I intentionally and maliciously made her pump diesel in her car, as if that's even plausible to begin with. Thankfully, my manager was there and told the actual story, and nothing happened to me. I know it sucks when this crap happens and you want someone to blame, but we literally can't pay for your gas. I can't give you money out of my register. That would be stealing. People would tell me the wrong pump number or forget to pump their gas and come back surprised that someone else had pumped their gas. Almost all of them expected us to reimburse them for their mistake. You could literally get fired for being $5 short, much less filling up someone's gas tank because they messed up. Edited to add, I don't know how the nozzle fit in her car and got the diesel. This was 2012, right before they replaced the pumps, so I don't know how they look now. All I know is she did it. Don't underestimate people's ability to be stupid. For those who asked, yes, I'm in the US, specifically South Carolina, unfortunately. There are safeguards to prevent this from happening, but it still happens. Nothing is foolproof. In my 4 years, it happened like 3 times. So, rare, yes. Impossible, no. Okay, yeah, that entitled mother definitely did act a little crazy, but I think we can all understand you'd be upset if that happened. Obviously, it's no one else's fault other than the mother's, but you know, you don't want to accept responsibility for that because you know what that means. Paying out of your pocket, feeling stupid, and all that jazz. However, I will say this, my family has been in the gas station business for a long time. Probably about as long as I've been alive. And I will say this, my family has always been understanding when it came to people accidentally using the wrong pump number or forgetting to pump their gas or something like that, and we'll just comp the gas to them. But that was done as an owner or a manager, so a regular old cashier does not have that authority, so don't expect the same thing. This story's called Entitled Mother Locks Me Out of the Changing Room and Later Shoves Me to the Ground and Runs Away. This was my first encounter with an entitled mother, and it happened a few months ago. I'd gone home from college for a while since I was terribly homesick, and my parents wanted me to visit, and my mother decided to take me shopping that day. So here I was at a clothing store, shopping and spending a while picking out things to try. I had some clothes with me, and I headed to the changing rooms. There was a bit of a queue, but I didn't mind, and I waited patiently for my turn. Enter entitled mother with her entitled kid, who disregarded me and the 2 girls waiting in line behind me and walked past us to stand in front of one of the rooms. All of us immediately protested, and my mom loudly told her that there's a line and that she should wait with the rest of us. Entitled mother's kid looked to be about my age, I'm 19, and she ignored us while her mother said, "Oh, you can wait another 10 minutes. I've been on my feet all day." My mother hates people who cut in line with a passion, and she began to chew entitled mother out, telling her to be a decent human being and wait in line like a normal person. But entitled mother refused to budge. The two girls behind me began to sternly ask her to go back, but she just ignored us. The employee nearby told her that she had to wait in line or she wouldn't be allowed to try on her clothes and that it was inappropriate of her to do this. This enraged entitled mother, who shrieked at the employee saying,
How dare you talk to me with such disrespect? You're an employee and mind your own business.
The employee looked irritated, but she persisted and told her that if she didn't stand in line, she would be forcibly removed from the store. Throughout this time, Entitled Kid stood behind her mother, glaring at all of us. Entitled Mother huffed when she realized we were all not going to take her BS and went to stand at the back of the line. We thought this was the end of it, but no. Entitled Mother had other plans. When it was my turn, I went in and put on the clothes and opened the doors to come out to show it to my mom, who was talking on her phone and facing away from me. I walked a few steps forward to tap on her shoulder to get her attention when I see Entitled Mother and Entitled Kid rush past me and get into the room I had been changing in. They got in and locked the door, leaving me outside. I immediately began knocking on the door, telling her my clothes are still in there and I wasn't done and that she had to come out. Entitled Mother yelled at us to step off, and my mother, who realized what was happening, went to find an employee. I continued knocking. I was worried because my wallet and phone were in there and I didn't want Entitled Mother to steal them. All the other people in line found it incredulous that Entitled Mother was being so insufferable. And only when an employee came with a security guard did Entitled Mother come out. She looked furious and began to scream at me saying,
Can't you wait a few minutes? How can you be so disrespectful? We need to use the room too.
I told her that she had no right to barge into the room when my belongings were still in there. Thankfully, she didn't steal anything, but this seemed to enrage her more. Entitled Kid walked off in anger, and Entitled Mother screamed at me again.
Because of you, my daughter didn't get to try on her clothes. You're a brat and you should stay in your place.
Before I could answer, she walked towards me and shoved me hard, and I lost my balance and fell. I wasn't hurt, but this was the last straw for my mom, who pushed the woman back and started yelling at her to step off. The woman spat at my mom, but missed, and then walked out of the store before anyone could stop her. It took my mom a few hours until she could calm down, but thankfully we never saw Entitled Mother again. Really? I thought the whole line cutting issue ended after kindergarten, but apparently I'm wrong? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.